Welcome to the OC. I'm Phil. This is my co-host Corey, and tonight we're talking about Shag Harbour. What a great name!
It
Even the
makes you wonder
residents are like,
how did they get that? Like, do you think it meant
"How do you
something
think they
different when
got
they
that?"
named it back in the? Well, yeah, I don't think it's because it's the romantic getaway of Nova
Right?
Scotia.
Get him a rowboat. We're going up to Shag Harbour. The old man used to talk about a place called Horny Hill in Callender, and I was always like, "Oh, right, that's the place."
That's make out point
Horny.
of calendar.
What was it called? Horny Hill. We drive through Cali. Always like it was like he just reminiscent of up there, Horny Hill. It's like okay, Pa. Anyway, yeah, Shag Harbour. Yeah, something happened there. What happened? What happened in Shag Harbour?
Well, so this is Canada's Roswell,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
again is I think an overstatement, but
it's a bit of a step. Yeah, but okay. Like in terms of, well, let's start at the beginning.
okay,
Let's set
which
the
means
scene.
it's a wonderful evening, October 4th, 1967.
Ah, yes,
Love is
it's
in the air in
it's
Shag
cool.
Harbour.
It's cool in Shag Harbour. You need blankets.
You need blankets. That's
You're
right.
shagging in Shag Harbour.
That's right.
You need
Be
some.
there with one you love.
Be there with the one you love, not the one you like. Anyway, so then what happens? There's
So it
some
will. So
lights.
yeah. So we'll start. I think with the first incident. I believe from everything I've read is Air Canada flight 305.
305. Well, yes, there's that, which I thought was probably the most it's documented.
Yep.
But there was also some other ones with lights in the sky.
So this is so we can actually go back to that if you want to touch on that, because this is sort of the almost like the apex of the incident rather than the initial part of it, because you're right, there are all the other sightings. So go ahead, why don't you talk about those?
So I mean, the lights were just before, I guess, all the shit hit the fan. Basically, is that there were these orange lights in the sky. Now there's a debate as to whether there were a sequence of orange and yellow lights or just orange. But knowing myself as a colorblind individual,
and likewise,
they would probably all be orange to me to some degree.
they'll be black, they'll be white, I'll be white lights, like looking at them going, huh.
That's the problem. But there was like 5 teenagers that basically were, they were out doing whatever
in Shag Harbour. Wink,
wink, wink, and a ton of people, basically. And so I'm kind of going. I did it kind of backwards. So let me go to the. So yeah, the Chronicle Herald, the local radio station, was saying people were calling in like crazy. So they reported witnessing strange glowing flying objects. Some of them were rectangular. Just very odd behavior in 1967.
And this had actually been, so I'd read something about this. It wasn't just on October 4th. There had been
this was previous.
This is previously that kept showing up.
Yeah, and what was it? So there was also this dude that was in the harbor. What was his name? Howard Mersey. Did you read about Howard?
No, I don't have his name. I don't have his name.
Well, he was a captain of a ship, and basically his radar was picking up all this stuff like 28 kilometers away, right?
Okay.
So yeah, it was blips on his Deca radar, and this was recorded. Like his radar systems were picking it up, and they were floating and they were stationary, like in the air. Like, okay. And he witnessed them. He saw the lights, and he like in the ocean you can see quite a ways away, and
particularly when it's dark and if
and
there's no light.
Yeah,
there's a light.
It's a football stadium light going off in the distance. Yeah, so there was tons of these. An entire crew of 20 fishermen stood on deck and saw. We're watching. Look, this wasn't just one person, obviously. And let me see here. Oh yeah, and the RCMP in Lunenburg, which I visited Lunenburg when I was over.
Okay,
great. It's a very touristy place, but cool little town. There was some RCMP there that witnessed this and reported it as well. So there's a ton of people that saw all this stuff.
Now, when you say witness, are we talking the incident itself? Or are we talking prior?
No, these are the lights. So the lights. This is just, and that's why it's at the end of my thing. Is that it was kind of like it wasn't just, this big big hoorah in the harbor. There was a lot leading up to it, and it was like a week or so before. Now, Shag, I don't know if you know this, but Shag Harbour is notorious for sea monsters stories. Did you read about that too? Like, it's been
I heard it's notorious for Russian submarines.
Well, that was later. Don't ruin it. Don't.
Fair enough. Okay.
Don't ruin the surprise. Monsters. But anyway, so those are some of the preamble. But go on about the because I think that Flight 305 was probably Air Canada's Flight 305 was probably the best. Out of all of the evidence, probably the best. Because
it's the one that I mean, now mind you, we do know airline pilots like to drink, so maybe there's something to that. I don't know, but
that's right. I mean, it could be a Tom Hanks sort of fella up there and just doing his thing. Oh my God, Jim, tell me you see this.
I'm done drinking. Okay, so all this builds up to about 7:15 on the 4th of October 1967. Air Canada Flight 305 sees 4 objects, one big lit rectangular object followed by 3 little objects.
Yeah, and that correlates with a lot of the other witnesses, right? So, okay.
And then they apparently see, they said, I read 2 explosions.
Right.
So the first explosion essentially knocks it out of the sky, and the second one is when it gets closest to the water.
Oh.
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
So, okay. It lands on the water, and it's now you have these lights on the water.
It doesn't sink though.
It does not sink.
Oddly enough.
Oddly enough. Now we understand that yes, often these vessels can be, if it was an airplane, planes don't immediately sink and disappear, but they usually do it fairly quickly.
Yeah, they do. Some of them float for a bit. Larger. But this was not a plane. This was a rectangle. This was a
rectangle. Yes, rectangle. Damn near killed him.
Rectum. That's right. Okay, well, they see this and then they're like, they call it in, right?
They call it in, right? Because they see this thing. So, but it wasn't. So several things happened. So there was Darnell and Annette. They saw apparently this happen. They were sitting on their porch, their brother and sister, Shag Harbour, which no judgment here.
67 people sat on porches. They were outside.
They saw it, right?
Growing up, we were outside a lot.
You were outside a lot because there wasn't nothing going on inside. Captain Leo on his boat and he's had his same thing. The Decker radar saw this thing happen.
That's right. Yeah.
Everybody's calling this in. Everybody's calling it in.
Yeah.
Our 3 RCMP officers show up. They see it floating on the water.
That's right. I have the what are their names here? Ron
Pound, Werbeski, and O'Brien.
Yeah, and
United Nations right there.
Right, and these guys are like, "What the fuck?"
It's not one lone drunken cop sitting in Shag Harbour by himself.
Oh no. It was
like they're like, yeah, something's there.
Now, in their defense, a lot of them thought this was an actual plane crash. Right.
Correct.
They thought
exactly right.
Something bad has happened, and
which is what you would think.
Right. I mean, if I saw lights coming down into the water
with a splash,
my first thought is going to be it's a plane. I mean, my second thought would be, wait, it's hovering above the water. What? That's a bit weird. Oh wait, that's a giant, cube.
That's right. This is the Borg showing up.
That shouldn't fly, should it?
Like Bumblebee. Do you remember the whole Bumblebee paradox that they said, based on our knowledge of aeronautics, Bumblebee shouldn't be able to fly? Well, apparently we figured it out. I can't quite remember the details, but we figured it out that
obviously
yes,
they can.
They can because they do. It's not magic. They fly. It's just they fly slightly differently than how we
they don't really
like a helicopter.
They just
more like a helicopter,
like little drunk sailors. I mean, they don't. They're terrible flyers. That's why people are like, oh my God, he's coming for me, and the bee's like, get out of the way.
I'm swollen with pollen.
Yeah, I can barely breathe. I'm coming for you. I'm just trying to survive.
And this is this object, right? So this object lands again. So I read couple different things. One, the whole hovering above the water. One, it's in the water but not sinking. One, it's floating on the water. So
yeah. And it's October and it's 7 whatever. It's dark. It's getting dark. So, these are, and now they're not that far out. Now, my understanding is fishermen, excuse me, a couple of the local, they try to go up first, right? That's who was first on scene?
Correct. They had, I don't think they were officially dispatched.
No, they were like, oh my God, there's like maybe there's survivors.
Help, right?
Yeah. And what do they find when they get out there?
A slick.
A yellow slick.
A sulfurous slick on the water. The exact, what was it?
Well, yeah.
The exact description of it was, and it was fairly big. Like this was a significantly sized. Let's see, what is it? The sulfurous smelling yellow foam continued to swell well to the surface from the point where the UFO went down, and a 120 by 300 foot slick developed.
Gross.
Yeah, so that's yellow. So which again, yellow sulfur. Okay, that makes sense, right?
Yeah, sure.
Sulfur, most sulfur's yellow, and I want to say, and I tried to find this from my Falcon Lake notes. Wasn't sulfur also associated
smell
with
of sulfur
that too? Yes.
Yeah, so that was Steve. Steve was like, I can't remember his last name, Malkovich, or anyway. I want
to say it was like a Ukrainian or a Slavic.
He was, yeah. But yeah, the smell of sulfur was super strong. Which why? No idea. But now we're seeing that again. And then there was nothing though, right? Correct. So they're like, it's sunk. Whatever it was, it's now at the bottom of Shag Harbour.
And this is documented. So the nice thing about this, now I've got the RCMP report. I was trying to pull up the D&D report. Now, apparently, fun fact.
It's supposed to be there because I tried to find it too, but
I spent the morning going through the National Archives trying to tease it out. And I'm like, so this is apparently known as case number 34 in the Condon Commission, the Condon Committee.
Okay.
So the Condon Committee report was essentially this when they shut down Project Blue Book. They had to say, hey, by the way, what have you been doing all our stuff? Let's do a report, right? Because why not, right? Let's create a committee and do a report and say, hey,
for sure.
This is known as case number 34.
Oh.
So I was trying to pull up some of those records. I couldn't get any of those, but
that'll be on our website, right? You'll be able to put those notes.
Yes. I've got some stuff. So I'm trying to pull out some of the. I'm not gonna give up finding the D&D report for sure. Because again, similar to the Falcon Lake. This is documented. We've got an RCMP report.
Oh yeah.
Right. Yeah. And have you seen the RCMP report?
I pulled it up. It was really tiny, so I had a really hard time to read it.
Here, I got a
maybe you can
here. I got to
pull it up.
Let's see if I can flash. Let's see if I can flash it up here. 1 second. Let me just give me a second. Yeah, let me just flash it up. Okay.
Yeah, but obviously there's numerous people that saw this. This is basically a whole town.
Oh yeah. So this is the official RCMP report.
Yeah. I saw that and I had a hard time reading it. Maybe you can zoom it up.
Oh, here, 1 second. So I should be able to. How's that looking?
A little bigger than I can. Yeah. So yeah, that's the same one. Yeah.
So you can see, and again, so officially documented, which is again, this isn't some dude with his like here, and it says about 9 p.m. on the 4th.
Yeah. So this is Mersey. This is the guy that was like,
correct.
Yeah. So he's a big deal too. Like
I love this. Captain Mersey is considered to be a reliable type individial and bears a good reputation in his community. Because they're like
he's not a drunkard.
Not crazy. Right?
He's not that weird guy that hangs out at the school at lunchtime. Like, oh, okay. No, Mersey's he's a well-respected member of the community. Plus, there was like 20 other people that also saw that. Like,
now again, does that mean they're not? They're not. We're not sure about the other people. We're not sure about Captain Leo, but Captain Mersey, he's a solid.
He's solid dude. He's a solid dude. He's a fisherman. He's a good one. I guess. I don't know.
I guess. Yeah, exactly.
But that's kind of the weird part of all this, right? Is that we have lots of witnesses, and then basically, this thing goes out of sight. At this point, it's weird, but I think most people are probably of the mindset like this is some sort of like flying plane. This is human to some degree.
Of course. Well, remember, this was 1960, so I don't know when the the UFO craze really took off. But
I don't know. I mean, yeah, in Canada. I mean, these are okay. So 1967, you were in the Maritimes. Let's paint a picture for anyone who's not of this country.
Take us back, Phil.
Take us back. Maritimes. 1960s. This is a hardworking community of individuals, mostly made up of fishermen and women.
And the internet was terrible, right? The internet reception was terrible.
And 67, you got 2 channels on television.
And that's your internet. Your internet is CBC.
Yeah, and maybe 1 or 2 radio stations. Yeah. So no, this is just like even the Maritimes now. Like when I visited my wife and I before COVID, we went there, and people are amazingly friendly. They are wonderful, but there is a lot of poverty. Like there is a lot of
kind of hard scrabble. Like I always liken it to the some of the American, not the American South, that might be, but more like the Appalachia, the hardworking areas where you have, it's mostly blue collar. They're employed in 1 or 2 industries.
Yeah, fishing and canning and like, you know, like a lot of and believe it or not, mining now is because
really?
So
okay.
Well, not on the island. So when we were there, I got to talk. You know me, I'm fairly chatty, and I've
never would have known that.
No, I know. But like some of the local guys who were fishermen all their lives, right? And then what happened was basically, you know, the fishing industry changed. It died. Like they couldn't compete with like offshore Japanese fishing. You know, so what they did was the government kind of was like, okay, well, let's offer some training programs, and we can fly you guys out. So what you have is Maritimers working in places like Alberta and you know, all the bigger mines,
makes sense,
good money. You know, like I mean, we're not talking, you know, millions of these individuals, but you're talking, you know, if you wanted to take the initiative and learn a new way of living,
you was okay with spending weeks at a time away from your family, which, you know,
so and that's the other thing, and they fly them in and out. This actually happened in a little town called Mattawa, which you would drive through when you come here. You know Mattawa. So one of the biggest supplier or jobs that was there was a place called Tembec, and it shut down.
Oh,
so it was pulp and paper.
It fully shut. Has it fully shut down?
Oh, years ago, a decade ago.
Okay,
more than that. I don't even know. They did a similar thing. So some of these mining companies said, "Hey guys, if you want, we'll pay for your training, etc., and we'll fly you out to places, and you can work for us." And that for a lot of these men who didn't have any other opportunities, they worked there from the time that they were like young boys. They went, okay, and yeah. So you see this happening quite a bit, you know, all over the country when jobs become obsolete, right? So, but anyway, this is a no-nonsense place.
I always hate to use the term obsolete, but you're absolutely right. It's like horse and buggy manufacturer, right? Like, guess what? And newspapers now. My wife, it kills her because her mother loved her Ottawa Citizen, and
you don't get it. There is no print anymore.
It still exists, but it's declining. Probably. So we used to have like the Ottawa Citizen, the Ottawa Sun, and the Globe, not the Globe and Mail, the National.
Post.
Blank. Anyway, yeah. Now it's like they're operating literally out of the same building.
Yeah, because nobody's, you know, like you have a whole generation that are just they
can't read.
Well, they're not well anyway.
They want to YouTube, Phil. That's how this incident, by the way, I was on my treadmill and I was sparking up, and I watched a couple short little videos about Shag Harbour.
Me too. Yeah. And well, I watched not on my treadmill. No, that sounds ambitious. But yeah, but of that time, you know, these are no nonsense individuals. These are guys that are, you know, these are ladies and gents that are working hard for their living.
Practical, right? Very practical people, very practical, not necessarily prone to fits of fancy.
Especially in 67.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, that kind of paints a picture. It's a kind of a poor, and it's always been sort of a poorer province of Canada, and rich in resources, but poor in management thereof. That's just my political view. I don't know.
That's right.
Take it for what it's worth, which is
the folks
pretty much nothing.
The folks of New Scotland, we want to apologize.
We would like to apologize. Well, no, man, I met a lot of bitter people when I was over in Nova Scotia, and yeah, because we toured the entire coast. Darlene and I, we went the whole way, and we never made it to Shag Harbour. We didn't go that far. We were like, nah.
Apparently, they have a museum there about this incident. But
so I checked that out online. So if you just take Shag Harbour incident, all sorts of things will come up, including the National Archive of Shag Harbour, which goes into some detail, not a lot. You really got to start digging deeper than,
And it was hard to dig deper on this, but so we'll come back, we'll loop back.
So what happens? It sunk. It's sunk.
It's sunk. The fishermen come out, they find this yellow, foamy, slick.
Gross.
It's just disgusting, but nothing's there other than this massive bubbling slick.
Yeah, it smells like buffet fart all over the place in the ocean.
Yes. Exactly like that. I think that's how they describe it as in the official report.
It's all like a buffet fart. What? So, that all you can eat one.
That all you can eat one. A lot of eggs.
A lot of egg. A lot of.
So they go off and check to see, hey, are any planes missing? And all the planes are accounted for. So there's no.
That's right. They called what do they call?
Wink, wink, wink. There's no planes missing.
Good.
That they know of, right? Good. So that's good. And then the next day, the HMS, what is it? HMS
Coast Guard. There's number 101 rushed to the spot.
Rushed might be a bit of a
so it wasn't just the fishermen. So the fishermen were the first out, but then the Coast Guard came and they're like, we're just seeing, and they searched. They searched that whole area till like 3 a.m. or something. Jazz like that, right? And they called Halifax's NORAD. So I guess Halifax has a NORAD institution for Eastern Seaboard, and nothing was missing. No planes, no people.
Yep.
Yeah. So then take us from there.
So essentially 2 days later, the HMS Granby shows up from Marine Command to go off and start using divers. So they're putting divers in here to go off and search, because if this thing sunk, then there should be
wreckage.
Something.
One would think.
So this is why when you said the response, I was thinking you were more referring to the Navy response, because
like, well,
you know what? They're probably already dead. It'll be fine.
It'll be all right. No, it was, so that was just the fishermen and the Coast Guard, and they came out. These are people that mobilize fairly quickly. They have boats. They're people of the water. They're like,
people of the water.
We were born for this.
We're like Aquaman.
Oh, and they look out for each other, right? They're like, hey, Jim hasn't come back yet.
And thank God, because you know what? This is I don't know. Did you ever see the movie The Perfect Storm?
I vaguely, that's a
George Clooney where he's going up the wave that's like that. And we're like, okay.
Wait, not to ruin it. Spoiler alert. Do they not all die?
Yeah, that's right. They tell this beautiful story. They tell this story. You're like, all we know for sure in the case of The Perfect Storm is they went out and never came back, and there was a storm. Instead, they do this thing where they caught all the fish they could ever get, and then this massive battle with crazy waves where they're going up.
I like the one where Lieutenant Dan is on the mast. Is that all you have?
They were like Legless Lieutenant Dan.
Legless.
Gary Sinise. It's Gary Sinise, right?
It is. He's a great actor. Yeah, Lieutenant Dan.
No, anyway, Lieutenant Dan did not go diving here. They found nothing. So nothing. So, and it actually, it made the news, but then it
just died.
It died very suspiciously.
Because it's 67. They've got shit to do.
I know, but
we're not like captivated by anything anymore. We're hardworking at this point in human civilization.
Okay, but here's the thing. Okay,
yeah, we got jobs. My mind,
it looks suspicious how quickly it. We didn't find anything. We're good. Because remember, what else little incident was happening at this time?
Well, that was the Falcon Lake incident. Was very much around this time, right? Is that what you're talking about?
I'm more referring to geopolitically.
Oh, geopolitical. Oh.
Cold War,
67, right? Cold War, Vietnam. There's a lot going on.
Korea, like there was a bunch of stuff happening at this point. Yeah. And so when you see this, and this is what they talk about, what is this? Okay, so before we go to, you saw the 1993 update?
So that's when this gets notoriety. Nobody even knows about this. I don't even think it made national news in 67. It made,
I think, the Chicago, I think, what was it, the Chronicle? What was it, the...
I don't know.
The Chronicle Herald, which I don't even know if...
No, I think that is their, like, that's like a fucking local...
Yeah, like, that's the thing. I'm like looking at it. What is it?
Yeah. Oh, here it is.
The Chronicle Herald.
The Chronicle Herald is like a newspaper in, like, Halifax.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where it's like...
Okay, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Now, on a government level, we don't know what exact... Because, I mean, now NORAD's not going to release... all of its information, like, so we're dealing with a similar situation right now, right, with what's happening currently.
Yes, this is why we talked about this, because it's topical with all the UFOs flying around now. They're balloons we're shooting down that apparently we can't,
and no one's claimed. Only one has been claimed as a balloon.
That's right. Yes, and there's a bunch of other stuff we've been shooting down.
Yeah,
maybe it's a big duck. Who knows?
Maybe it's a big duck, and then all of a sudden nobody talks about it. It's like, okay, and then we just sort of like go, all right, whatever. It's government just being government people, and we don't need to know, I guess.
But that's with this, where it's shut down quickly in 1967. So remember,
or was it?
So remember how Roswell, right? They immediately release. They say we've got a UFO, and they're like, "Oh no, folks, it's a weather balloon."
Yeah, that guy got fired.
Like, yeah, don't say that.
Why did Henry call the newsstand, the news people? Why would he do that?
Yes.
He's in Siberia for the rest of his days.
Siberia. Right. We're like, that's right. As a I tell you what, we'll take one of your prisoners, and we're sending this guy
to the gulag or whatever. Yeah, this guy's an idiot.
So in this case, because it got so quickly, it just sort of fell out of the news cycle, right? Like it. Now I'm sure in Shag Harbour they were probably talking about it for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. But from a national level,
years even.
Well, they opened a museum. Now I don't know when did the museum open?
I'm not sure, but you can check their website. It's all detailed there, and but
I think we should. I was going to go off and start linking stuff, but
1993 happens, and this fucking guy, what was his name?
Okay. What was Stiles? Chris Stiles. Now,
Chris Stiles.
But no, that makes him sound like a lone nut job.
He wasn't alone.
Who was he working with? What organization?
The MUFON, which I had to. I'm like, who is MUFON? I'm like, Mutual UFO Network.
Yes.
With investigator Doug Ledger. So these two guys, I don't know if they're nut jobs, but they're certainly.
They're not. Okay, so I'm sure they're not. Like, this is
maybe I don't use
a term. I think they're enthusiastic for sure. And again, I didn't know MUFON exists. Like I was familiar with SETI. I wasn't familiar with MUFON.
No, me either. And does it still exist? I don't know. Maybe.
Well, they have I went to their website.
They have a website.
I signed you up. I signed you up.
Oh, good. I can't wait to get all that email. And
I'm like, here. Phil, yes, he has been abducted.
Yeah, well, I was pretty drunk. They could have just took me home. I don't know.
So the cool thing,
where does this human live? God, doesn't even have any ID on him.
The scientific study of UFOs for the benefit of humanity, and they say they've got 3 goals: investigate UFO sightings and collect data in the MUFON database for use by researchers, which is totally useful for what we're doing with.
Sure.
Now how did we not stumble over these guys when we did Falcon Lake?
I have no idea. But that's useful now.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Now that we've covered the only 2 Canadian UFOs.
Interesting Canadian ones. So right. The other second goes, promote research on UFOs to discover the true nature of the phenomena with an eye towards scientific breakthroughs improving life on our planet.
True.
And 3, educate the public on the UFO phenomena and its potential impact on society.
Right.
Those are their 3 goals. So,
sounds good. Legitimate. I like it. So they go in 1993 and they just start questioning everybody who's still alive.
Yep.
Who are now old as shit.
Yep.
And basically start asking them about that night. And they start to tell, and the stories do vary a little bit from person to person. I read this on what's that site where it's like Snopes?
Oh, Snopes. Yeah, the debunking site.
Yeah, and I read their take on this, and basically they were like, well, there's a lot of different things, but it sounds legitimately like some people saw, like there were too many. They saw something.
They saw something now.
That, and there was, obviously government involvement that, like, you're the Navy, and I say we found nothing.
Navy. We found nothing to see here.
Yeah, if we find something down there that we're like, oh my god,
would you tell us? Like, right? this is the thing. Would they actually say?
Okay, because I'm pretty sure that you're not gonna tell us.
Because we saw how well it worked out with the Roswell incident, right? Oh, we know it's the weather balloon.
Yeah, we're gonna send 75 trucks for a weather balloon, armed men. Yeah. So, well, they were there for more than a couple days, though. They were there for.
Yeah, I want to say it was. I want to say it was like not. I want to say it was not a week, but it was. It
was a long period of time that they were out there.
They did a significant. It wasn't like, hey, okay, here you hop over the side. Let me know if you see anything, and then I'll wheel you back up. It's like no, you go down there and you search. Like, we're gonna search this area.
Yeah, and this is the ocean. Patterns. I'm not sure how deep it was where they were, but I mean, obviously,
I suspect they went to the bottom. I mean, you wouldn't go off and say, yeah, we went down 10 feet snorkeling.
Some dude and his face in the water. I don't see it.
Nothing. And they would have done. It wouldn't have been just diving, right? They would.
Well, they would have used sonar,
exactly,
for sure. Right? Yeah,
maybe drop some depth charges to deal with the aliens
first.
That's right. First, I tried to soften them up.
I think they're still moving.
That's right. Yeah, they seem to be turning it here. I think they're trying to start up the ship again.
Yeah. Well, why don't we take a quick break and then we can come back
into the response. Yeah, it works.
And we'll revisit 1993 and all the little stories that kind of start to pop up that weren't there in 1967. All right.
Sounds good.
We'll be back in 2 minutes. Hey, we're back.
Hey.
All right. Okay, so where did we leave off? We left off in 1993. Chris Stiles, these guys, they kind of rehashed the past, and
they're like Scully and Mulder.
Yeah, like these guys are like, hey,
Scully and Mulder, whatever her name was.
Mulder. No, wait, Mulder was the dude. Scully was the.
It was Scully or Sully. It was Scully, right?
Scully.
Yeah, Gillian Anderson. I remember Gillian Anderson. I just don't remember. I never was a big X-Files fan.
Me too.
So Doug and Chris.
The show, but yeah, Doug and Chris.
Yep.
Yeah, those guys. So they go
working for
MUFON, and they decide to go and interview all these individuals, and basically they start to get different sides of this story. Now we got to remember, this is the Cold War. You mentioned that at the beginning, that this is like the thick of the Cold War. The United States.
1967, not 1993. So 1967.
So these are the people from that time.
Yeah.
And a lot of them were worried about attacks. And I think that some of these folks thought maybe this could have possibly been a Russian attack.
Because there were a lot of Russian submarines poking around Halifax, right? They had a center there designed.
That's right.
The Navy had a base there designed to detect submarines.
And that's one of the things that they kind of got into, was that there were, at that time and that evening, or that close to that period, there was a detected Russian submarine off the coast of Halifax in international waters. So, which I don't believe is an act of war. You can be in international waters,
And you can be in national waters if you're not found.
And if you're deep enough, no one knows.
That's right. If they're not sure. And what are you going to do? What are we going to do? Nuke them?
Well, in World War II, there was German submarines that went up the St. Lawrence River. Can you imagine? You're like,
now, in their defense, we were literally at war with them, so it makes sense.
Well, yeah. No, I know, but we didn't know.
I don't know what they hope to accomplish. I mean, right? I mean, yeah, you could sink stuff, but you're not getting back.
They wanted to go to Quebec for a poutine.
Yeah, exactly.
They docked, Quebec City, whatever. Yeah, no. But yeah, so tell me a little bit more about what you remember or what you saw.
Okay.
Or read about.
Well, okay. So what I read about was Chris and Doug interviewed a bunch of people. So they interviewed the divers, right? So one of the things they talk about was the object that dove into the waters of the harbor had soon left the Shag area, traveling underwater for about 25 miles to a place called Government Point.
Right.
It was near a submarine, government submarine detection base.
Right.
Okay. The object was spot on sonar there, and naval vessels were positioned over it. After a couple of days, the military was planning a salvage operation when a second UFO joined the first.
Right. Now, this wasn't discussed in 67 because everyone was tight-lipped, right?
At all.
Right.
At all. So the second one shows up, and the thought is the general consensus was that this had shown up to rescue the other.
Right.
And the Navy decided to just watch and wait.
Which was probably smart.
As opposed to start, going all guns a-blazing and,
you know, if it's not a hostile threat, why would you attack it? Right? This is the part that I don't understand. Okay. So apparently they were, after about a week of monitoring the UFOs, some of the vessels were called to investigate a Russian submarine that had entered Canadian waters. So it's like, wait a second, we got a UFO here. Yeah, we need to go check out the sub. But we've got maybe something from another world.
Yes, but you're not going to do anything about that. Don't worry about it. Let it be.
Let it be. Yeah, because they, the aliens called forward and said, "Hey, you want to get these ships off our ass?" And yeah, that's if you believe in that whole aliens run the world type thing.
That's right. Yes, New World Order.
New World Order
from the moon.
But yeah, so that was at Government Point, right?
Yeah, and then they took off, and then when some of the vessels had gone off to deal with the Russian submarine, apparently the two vessels, both of them, took off and towards the Gulf of Maine and the chasing Navy boats. They broke the surface and shot away into the skies.
Just like that. And
now, this does not make its way into any official reports.
None. So you have to wonder, so many years later, everyone was tight-lipped. And now, in 1993, so you're like 20 years after the fact, right? No, 30 years, almost 30 years.
Yeah, because I believe 25 years is usually what stuff is supposed to be classified for. So now, this is what you saw with a lot of the UFO incidences where the U.S. is releasing, because much stuff has become unclassified. So they're releasing the footage.
Does certain things ever become unclassified, though?
They can choose not to, right? I mean, but
they heavily redact everything.
Sure.
Right. Just to protect what?
And this whole incident, when you look at it, you're like, okay, wait a second. Does this mean that, we know something happened.
Hundreds of eyewitnesses. Hundreds.
So this is where, what is this? So what could this be, Phil? What do you think this is? ET?
or a technology that we're not aware of. Like we've looked at like Area 51 and how these things are being created, but underwater ships. A spaceship would probably have very little problem working underwater.
Well, because if you can go through space. Now, mind you, I'd heard the inverse is not necessarily true.
But an anti-gravity, let's say, like these things operate in a sort of on a way that
they're moving. They can move through mediums, right? So what I'd heard was submarines, for example, are leaky as hell unless they're in water.
Oh, that makes sense.
Because the pressurization of the water sinks everything up, right? Whereas if you're on the surface, that's not there. So it's hard to get out. Yeah, that's right. That's what I'd heard. Again, not a submarine guy.
Yeah, but if this is something that's sophisticated enough to travel in space, if we're assuming that is what it is, then yeah, I would think that it's capable of going in water. And if you're going to crash land, it's probably better to do it in water than it is on land.
Correct.
They're like, remember Roswell?
Yeah. Don't land there. Don't
land on the ground. That stuff sucks.
Yes. Although, mind you, if you hit water from high enough and you're not aerodynamic or piercing, it essentially has the consistency. It's concrete at one point.
It's very much.
We've all belly flopped, right? Where it's like, okay, wait a second. It's like, or
a cannonball that goes wrong. Been there.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not fun, especially if you land,
I like the idea of
balls
this time.
first.
I like the idea of experimental governmental craft.
I do too.
Military, sorry, not government, experimental military craft. I like that idea because there was a lot of that happening at this time.
Yeah. But other than 50 some years later, we're still not seeing any kind of government. And that's the thing. Like when you look at Area 51, those projects, they start to develop and come out.
The Blackbird, right? the stealth bomber, you saw all these projects out there. And
yeah. Well, this is not a cube, or it's described as a rectangular, object flying. So when you hear that, you go, oh, wait a minute. Okay. Rectangles aren't aerodynamic.
But they're not flying saucers either.
No, and there was a triangular object as well, which we see that in popular UFO pictures and media stuff. But yeah, so those are the things that you kind of go, all right, well, what could this be? And the answer I have is I have no idea.
That's kind of where I am too, right? As far as I'm concerned, it sounds super interesting.
Yes,
but I mean, but
dare I say? Hold on one second. I'm just I'm losing power here.
Still there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Give me 1 second.
It's the aliens. They know that you're about to reveal.
They know, and I'm revealing I have power.
Okay,
I'm
perfect.
back. Damn laptop. But yeah, I don't know. How do you know? These people saw something that
saw something. So the nice thing is there's no doubt with the original 1967 incident that they saw something. There are too many witnesses to say it was nothing.
Right.
It's the what it is. And this is where the 93 update. This is all off
they
the
take advantage. I think there's some taking advantage of the situation, right? I mean, what sells when people go, I don't know what it was, or hey, it looked like a flying saucer. I mean, no one said that, but I mean, everyone's stories tend to collaborate in what it was: yellow, orange lights, hovering over the water for about an hour, and then sinking into the water. I mean, that in a nutshell is pretty much the story. And then you get all these other things. Now in 1993, they're saying, oh, there were 2 ships.
Yep. And they did, it left. We tracked it leaving. We had a bunch of ships there to catch it, which again.
Now, if you have a military posting of ships in an area for over a week, I would think, or at least logged in some way, shape, or form. Right?
And just the sheer number of people. Seriously, you have, I mean, the ship isn't crewed by one person. If you have a couple ships,
oh my God, these are warships. You're not sending out a couple tinners to go out and you're sending if shit happens, you want to have state-of-the-art bangs to deal with the situation.
Which means more people, which means
more people to talk. We found this out. People like to talk.
Correct.
They're blabbermouths when it comes to,
the only way 2 people can keep a secret is if one of them is dead, right?
True.
And when you have this many people,
what are you going to do?
I think the official quote is the only way 3 people can keep a secret is if 2 of them are dead. Yeah.
Is that how it goes? Yeah.
I think
either way, it makes total sense to me. Yeah. So then what happens? So these guys, they start to get notoriety, and then all these other UFO guys, I was going to say nut jobs, come out of but they're not nut jobs. I mean,
not nut jobs. I mean, are we nut jobs? We're talking about this now. Are we going?
We are
wearing our tinfoil caps. No, but
not yet. I'm going to put mine on in a second.
But the more you know, right?
The more you know. The more you know, the crazier you look. That tends to be the way. Well, let's look here. What else do I have? So yeah, so these guys, they get some notoriety.
They write a bunch of books, but I think they wrote a bunch of books anyway.
Yeah. He's a kind of a strange fella. Now, is he still alive? He must be 93.
I haven't dived into him, so he's gonna be. I'll be putting some bio in the notes. For Chris, if I can find anything on Doug. I couldn't find much on Chris and Doug, but I also didn't look particularly hard.
Yeah.
Because the interesting part is less them and more the fact that, hey, here's what they found, right? Here, and I use the word found. This is 93. This is 30 years after the fact, and they're talking to people saying, "Oh, so but you don't want to go on the record. You're not going to give me your name, but somebody told me.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things I read was that this informant came forward years later, saying that well, he wouldn't give his name or who he was, but there were these three guys who were working at an algae plant. Did you read about this?
No, I didn't. Oh. I have no idea.
So this is where you can go with all of this. But they came forward saying, well, they were bored one night and there was only 3 of them on shift, so they started to shoot flares into the water or over the water, and they claimed that was what. But none of that made any sense based on
particularly based on the Air Canada incident. Like, I'm pretty sure
the Mersey guy, the captain, who's like, okay, it's radar stationary. Flares don't sit stationary, and flares wouldn't show up on radar. They're too small. Yeah. Yes. So these were larger. I mean, obviously large objects. The other thing was that NORAD picked up nothing. So NORAD was new at this time, right?
Okay, so
picked up nothing.
But that is kind of believable because it turns out there's massive gaps in NORAD because of the balloons. These balloons were also, I was reading recently about the balloons floating all over our airspace, that there were gaps that these things pass through.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can, it's so funny because we're living in a time where like the government is sort of saying, and I know this is weird, but I'm seeing it all over, that we don't know if there are aliens or
but that's better than them saying there aren't.
Right. And then there's now a new task force in the United States to start investigating these sort of these
but
things.
Again, it's like it's not UFOs. What the hell's the other term for it?
Oh, there is another term.
Yeah. I'm drawing a blank. I was talking to Melissa this morning and I was like, yeah, it's not UFOs. Now they call it something else because UFO has an alien connotation. And what they're focusing on is the aspect of, we don't know what these devices are.
Right.
And if you're in an arms race with somebody, you really want to know.
Well, yeah, like what's going on right now is really kind of, it's strange, because if something is shot down, and when I hear the government say, we don't know what it is, or we have no idea, we have to recover the wreckage, as well as I do, that every one of these planes has state-of-the-art cameras that are picking up every single thing. One is for in the event of war, that, oh, you shot us down or whatever, we can go, no, right? you were shooting at us, and we have video. It's like having a dash cam in your vehicle.
Yep.
I think everybody should have one. I have one, and all of our vehicles have one. Why is that? Because when you say I did this and I go, fuck you, this is on my camera. So these F-22s have state-of-the-art cameras, and they've had cameras on fighter jets for the last 40 years to some degree. So we know that they took a picture of what they shot down.
Yep.
So where's the picture? Right. Makes me curious. Show me the balloon. You're shooting down a balloon with a state-of-the-art F-22. Come on now. Does that make any sense to you?
Yep. Now, mind you, this stuff can be classified, right? I mean, and I understand why they don't necessarily reveal it immediately, but this is where...
Or at all.
Yes, or at all. But you've got a balance between saying something and saying nothing, and sometimes saying something, but you can't say enough. So why do you bother saying something? It's a weird situation.
I get it. And it's just, and that's modern day today. Like we're looking at this in 1967. Well, we have no information on what just happened, in 2023 for an incident that, multiple people saw. One was,
so how are you going to go off? At least we got some documentation. It's like not to the level of Falcon Lake, but we've got some documentation. But still, it's like, okay.
Yeah. Well, this is it, right? I find that interesting that our government, Canadian government, and the United States, are very tight-lipped. Everybody saw the school bus sized balloon from the Chinese balloon, but the other 3 that were shot down within a week at varying locations in the country, you have to question, okay, what is it? What don't you want us to know? I don't know. What's your thoughts? What do you think Shag Harbour is, first of all?
Again, I like the idea of I'm going to go with the it's experimental aircraft or experimental for the time, or seacraft. I don't know. I mean, I don't think it was designed to be a submarine, but I think it wound up being a submarine. And if they, again, this whole idea of shot at, and I don't think it got shot out of the sky. I suspected.
No,
I don't know. I want to say government. Military aircraft, experimental military aircraft.
Yeah, I would love to say that. I think that if it was something that, didn't fall out of the sky and hover over the water.
But they're inconsistent. So this is where the reports are somewhat inconsistent.
Yeah.
Was it hovering? Was it floating? Was it sinking? Right? Did it submerge? Like, this is all the reports. The only thing we know is plane saw it, explosion, came down. We know it was on the water, whether it was hovering above the water. Nobody got, it was night. Nobody got a great look at it.
True.
We don't know whether it was floating on the water. We don't know it was in the midst of sinking. There's a bunch of stuff we don't know.
And whether or not they salvaged
which, again, think about
it. They're not going to, government's not going to tell you, oh, look at it.
The military's not going to go off and say, we're recovering our experimental aircraft during the Cold War.
Yeah, exactly. I have no idea. I would love to just say it's that, or
I know,
but I don't know. I think there has to be some other explanation for all of these planes and things that go. You're seeing so much more now. I mean, we have video cameras in our pocket every second of every day, right? So, you're seeing these lights over different countries. There was one in Brazil just recently at one of their soccer games or something, and people are like, what in the fuck is that?
But you look at the UAVs, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like, those are super cool now. I mean, hell, we've got drones dropping missiles on people. Like, this whole idea of it needs to be a plane. Well, no, it doesn't. You're right. Well, no, in this day and age, who knows?
Yeah. Technology is at a point where it's like, but in 1967,
was not. It was not.
No, and that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Would I be shocked today that there's an actual plane that can hover, go like Mach 3 and then stop on a dime and hover? No, I would be not shocked at all. That would not make me go, oh my God.
Oh my dear Lord.
There's videos of like, what's that institute that's built the robot that can fucking walk and do flips and
oh
my God. This thing is like, it's like if you put a gun in its hand, like terrifying. It's something instruments
whatever it doesn't
whatever it is, you can Google robot. Fucking thing is like, it can climb shit and like where are we at right now? And I'm supposed to be impressed that a plane can hover and move at great speeds. No,
exactly.
No, not overly impressed, but so what you want to wrap up? I mean, basically we've kind of got to the point that we're I
think we've done this to death, because again, so October 4th, 1967, odd object seen by Air Canada over Shag Harbour goes down. Everybody looks for it, nobody finds it, and nothing to see here.
Yeah, nothing to see. Look the other way. Be worried about the war.
Yeah, exactly.
Be worried about the war. There you go. All right. Well, what are we doing next week?
Okay. I'm thinking, why don't we do 0 units? The CIA Native Black Ops.
Oh my God. That sounds okay. 0 units.
They're called 0 units, and it's the CIA Native Black Ops.
Really? Okay. Well,
since we're talking about government military shenanigans, this is the good example of that.
Okay. I like that. All right. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'm Phil. This is Corey, and we're the OC, and we'll see you next week with 0 ups.
Units.
Oh, 0 units.
Yeah, I don't know what 0 ops will get you, but 0 units.
Google's 0 units. All right. Until next time. Bye.